Imagine waking up in ancient Rome. There's no alarm clock, no electricity, no running water. The city is already awake. Before sunrise, the streets are alive with noise. Wooden carts grind over stone roads, worn smooth by centuries of use. Vendors shout to one another as they prepare food for the day. Smoke hangs low in the air, drifting between buildings and settling into every open window. This isn't the Rome of marble statues and powerful emperors. This is the Rome most people lived in, crowded, noisy, dirty, and far more dangerous than history books usually admit. For the average Roman, daily life wasn't about glory or conquest. It was about endurance. So what was life actually like for the millions of ordinary people who lived, worked, and died in the greatest city of the ancient world? At its height, Rome was the largest city the world had ever seen. More than 1 million people lived inside its walls, an unimaginable number for the ancient world. There were no suburbs, no commuter towns, no quiet outskirts. Everything happened within the city itself. Rome grew too quickly for its own good. As more people arrived, buildings were packed tighter together. Streets became narrower. Sunlight disappeared from many areas entirely. The city never truly slept. During the day, crowds filled the streets. At night, heavy carts were finally allowed to travel, rattling through the city while people tried to rest. The smell was constant. Smoke from fires, waste from people and animals, rotting food left in the streets. For the wealthy, Rome was opportunity. For everyone else, it was pressure, physical, mental, and constant. Most Romans lived in apartment buildings known as insulae. These were not carefully designed homes. They were profit-driven structures built quickly to house as many tenants as possible. Insulae were stacked upward, sometimes 5 or 6 stories high. Brick, wood, and mortar were layered floor by floor, often with little concern for stability. The lower floors were the safest and most expensive. The upper floors were cheaper and deadly. The higher you lived, the more dangerous life became. Upper apartments were hot in summer, freezing in winter, and poorly ventilated year-round. Windows were small, light was scarce. Many apartments had no kitchens. Open flames were considered too dangerous, so most people bought food from street vendors instead. If you weren't wealthy, you lived several floors up, climbing narrow staircases every day, carrying water, food, and supplies by hand. And every night, as you lay down to sleep, there was one quiet fear you never escaped. Fires were common in Rome. Oil lamps, cooking flames, and wooden structures created perfect conditions for disaster. Once a fire started, it spread rapidly upward. Those on the upper floors were often trapped. Building collapses were just as common. Insulae were poorly maintained, walls cracked, beams rotted. Entire sections gave way without warning. When buildings collapsed, it was rarely the wealthy who died. It was the poor. Life inside these buildings was exhausting. Entire families shared single rooms. Privacy barely existed. Noise traveled easily through thin walls and wooden floors. Sleep was fragmented. At night, carts rolled through the streets, their iron wheels echoing between buildings. Animals wandered freely. Arguments, drunken shouting, and street fights were common. In summer, heat and smoke made breathing difficult. In winter, cold air crept in through cracks and broken windows. Most Romans began each day already tired. Rest was a luxury few could afford. Hygiene is where Roman life becomes truly uncomfortable. Rome smelled. Public toilets were communal. Stone benches lined the walls, with holes cut side by side. There were no dividers, no privacy. Instead of toilet paper, Romans used a sponge on a stick, shared by everyone, rinsed in salt water between uses. Public baths existed, but cleanliness varied. Water was reused repeatedly. Soap was rare. Many people bathed more for social reasons than hygiene. Waste disposal was inconsistent. Some areas had sewer systems. Others relied on open drains or simple dumping into the streets. Rotting food, human waste, and animal carcasses were common sights. Disease spread easily. Romans had no understanding of bacteria or infection. Illness was often attributed to bad air or divine punishment. Plagues swept through the city, killing thousands. Avoiding sickness wasn't about cleanliness, it was about luck. What you ate in Rome depended entirely on your social class. The wealthy enjoyed meat, fish, fruit, and imported spices. Their meals were long, elaborate affairs. The poor survived on bread, olives, and thin stews made from whatever was affordable. Fresh water entered Rome through aqueducts, one of the empire's greatest achievements, but access was unequal. Many people relied on public fountains or shared wells. Contaminated water was a constant risk. As a result, many Romans drank diluted wine instead, not for pleasure, but because it was safer. Meals were repetitive. Nutrition was inconsistent. Hunger was never far away. Roman society was rigid and unforgiving. At the top were senators and elites. At the bottom were slaves. In between were free citizens, artisans, laborers, shopkeepers, and soldiers. Most people worked long hours doing physical labor. There were no labor laws, no weekends, no guaranteed rest. Slavery was everywhere. Slaves cleaned homes, cooked meals, worked farms, built roads, and raised children. Some were educated, others were treated as disposable. A slave's life depended entirely on their owner. Social mobility was rare. Birth determined destiny. For most Romans, life was defined not by ambition, but by limitation. Rome's streets were dangerous. They were narrow, crowded, and poorly lit at night. Crime was common. Pickpockets, scammers, and violent gangs operated openly. There was no organized police force. If trouble came, you relied on neighbors or fled. Traffic laws didn't exist. Carts crashed into pedestrians. Animals wandered freely. Every journey carried risk. Despite hardship, Romans loved entertainment. Theaters, chariot races, and gladiator games drew massive crowds. The Colosseum was not symbolic. It was literal. Men fought animals. Men fought men. The crowd decided who lived and who died. Violence was not hidden. It was celebrated. For many Romans, these spectacles were an escape, a brief moment where hardship gave way to excitement. Life expectancy in Rome was low. Disease, injury, and poor nutrition took their toll. Child mortality was high. Many parents expected to lose children before adulthood. Death was common, sudden, and unavoidable. Most Romans never traveled far from where they were born. Their world was small, and their lives were fragile. When we think of ancient Rome, we imagine power, and grandeur. But for most people, Rome was survival. It was noise, hunger, disease, and danger mixed with moments of community and spectacle. A city of brilliance and brutality, Rome shaped the modern world. But the reality of daily life was far harsher than the statues suggest. Ancient Rome wasn't a golden age. It was a human one, and most humans lived it the hard way.